Namaste and welcome. I am Gloria Grace Rand, and I'm so glad you have joined us for another episode of Live, Love, Engage. And today I am pleased to have with me a lovely woman who I also just realized that I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name. So her
That
first
happens
name is
all the time.
Kristen, and is it Manieri?
Yes,
Ah,
yes,
I got it
exactly.
right. I got it right. Yay. Okay. Awesome. Well, she is the host of her own podcast called 60 Mindful Minutes that she launched in 2017. And it's to share conversations about what it means to live a more connected, conscious, and intentional life. And Kristen is also a writer with more than a decade of experience. Her work has been published on Huffington Post, Pop Sugar, Your Tango, and the Gottman Institute Blog, as well as inflight magazines. Ooh, well. And blogs for international airlines such as WestJet and Virgin. Ooh, kudos for that. That's pretty cool. And in 2018, Kristen launched her course, Awaken Living, and she has taken countless women through the process of becoming the conscious witness of their lives. And as a mindfulness teacher, her goal is to help students to become their sturdiest, steadiest, and calmest selves, which is something that we're finding that we need a lot of these days as we're dealing
Mm,
with this ongoing pandemic. So first off, welcome, Kristen, to Live, Love, Engage.
thank you. It's really great to be here.
Yes, I so appreciate it. And what's even cool is that we even live near each other. We didn't even know that until
Yeah.
until we
Yeah.
connected for this interview. So it's a small world. It's a small world. So yeah, I I think I wanted to start right there with me, dealing with the pandemic that we're dealing with right now. And how does I know you teach about mindfulness. So how can maybe being mindful help us right now, especially?
hmm Well, it can help us on so many levels. It can help us deal with a chaotic moment. Maybe we looked at something on the news, or we got some bad news from a friend, or we went to buy toilet paper and there wasn't any.
Yeah.
So in the moment when we might experience any level of anxiety, panic, upset, anger, frustration, being able to tap into the tools of mindfulness to just get through that moment, to just get back to some sense of centeredness in that moment. But I think a lot of us, especially as we start to kind of calculate how long, this is going to last,
Right.
like when do we officially call this the new normal?
Yeah.
I think mindfulness is actually especially helpful in creating, like, how do I want to feel today? How do I
Mm.
want to feel this week? How do I see my summer going? And how
Mhm.
can I set my life up and my family up and myself up to not just survive what's happening, but to thrive? We're not Kmart. We're not going to lay away our happiness until a vaccine comes, or
Right.
this opens or that doesn't open. Like we were wired for pleasure. It's a
Mhm.
massive center of our brain, and we shouldn't turn it off while we are coping with what's going on in the world. So I think mindfulness can kind of come to the rescue on so many levels when we are ready for what it offers.
Mm. That's good. Well, and that brings me to another question here, because there may be people out there who hear the term mindfulness though, and they don't really know exactly, well, what does that mean exactly? How am I, can you define that? What does it really mean, and how can we practice it?
Yeah. Well, for me, it is bringing your attention to whatever point of focus. It could be your breath, it could be your thoughts. And for the purpose of creating a shift. So it's not just, I sense anger, I sense frustration, I'm noticing my heart is beating faster, my body is clenching.
Mm.
That recognition is great, and that's a critical step of becoming a more mindful person. But then it's how will I shift that? Do I just need some nurturing? Am I playing a story in my head that maybe not necessarily be true? Am I holding back saying something that maybe needs to be said, and that's why I'm feeling so clenched? So yes, we return ourselves to a point of focus, to the present moment, but there's something us human beings can do beyond that, which is we can transcend, we can shift, we can transform what this moment has brought us, while still surrendering it, not as fixers, not as perfectionists, but just as people who want to return to a set point of calm and sturdy and steady.
That's good. Yeah, I appreciate that explanation. Is there like I suppose we could be doing this anytime during the day, but is there maybe some uh, a better part than others, or maybe a way? Is it a good idea to maybe start our day with that intention of being mindful, of sort of maybe a morning centering practice, perhaps? How would
Yeah.
that a good idea? And then how would you do that?
Yeah, I'm such a fan of the idea of front loading your day with what's most important.
Mm.
And so that could be a mindfulness practice, a spiritual practice. It could be your exercise. It could be when you get outside. It could be when you have some intentional time with the people you share your life with. But whatever it is, it's like, honestly, most of the most important things I do every day are complete by 11 a.m.
Mm.
And so I know that I've done all of the things that I need to do to set myself up to be the person that I want to be in this world, to contribute what I want to contribute, to create what I want to create.
Mm.
So morning centering practice as really the first thing that you do in the day, that first thing you do for yourself, that homecoming, that returning back to yourself before you hand your nervous system over to social media or the news. Like these
Right.
minutes or maybe hour of just peace and reflection and centeredness really sets the tone for the rest of the day. So for me, it looks like some sort of stillness. Maybe that's meditation. Maybe that's just literally just sitting still
Mm-hmm.
and being with whatever thoughts I'm thinking. I usually read, and I usually do some journaling. And lately, because there's more time in the morning, our schedule has shifted. I'll go for a nice, good long walk. And that is like, I say it's like the rudder of the day. It
Mm-hmm.
starts to navigate my day and
Right.
my inner state to where I want it to go. That steadiness.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I do similar things. It's like I get up in the morning. First thing I do is actually I do take my dogs out for
Mm-hmm.
a brief walk, but then I spend time. I do some reading. I've been reading actually a book about manifesting, I think, right now, and then I do some meditation for a while and some journaling, and then I've been reading A Course in Miracles. So and the Daily Word from Unity. So once I get all of that under my belt, it's like, yeah, then I can start focusing in on, okay, I guess I can look at my email and work and do
Yeah.
that. But it
Yeah.
definitely is a good way to get things started. But I do meditate. You mentioned meditation. I think sometimes people think that meditation and mindfulness maybe go hand in hand, or you need it. Do you necessarily have to meditate in order to practice mindfulness?
Definitely not. In fact, if that's the thing that's stopping you from creating some mindfulness practices, maybe even cultivating a mindfulness toolbox, I'll tell you right now, just leave it out. Leave it out until you feel drawn to it, until it actually calls to you. But I'm going to use the word should twice in the same sentence. It should never be a should.
Right, right.
You
Yeah.
can definitely become a mindful person. Like you don't even have to have an official formal practice for
Mm.
mindfulness. You could become someone, like you were saying, going on your morning walk with your dogs. That is an amazing opportunity to practice mindfulness, noticing the birds and maybe picking up how many different calls you can hear, noticing the smells, the scents in the air. I mean, your dogs certainly are. So it's
Yeah.
like, what are they smelling? Like,
That's right.
what do they smell that I can't smell?
I know.
Noticing the light changing as the day starts to break and the sun starts to rise. So any moment we're given the opportunity to practice mindfulness. You hear a lot of mindfulness gurus talking about washing the dishes, folding laundry. I mean, we can return to the experience of living our life in a very intentional, deliberate way all the time. Driving a car. It never has to be a formal practice. I even find that just reading about specific topics and really orienting myself to be really like steeped in them for a little while, like really contemplative about them, is a great mindfulness practice. And that might not look what most mindfulness teachers say, well, I'm not sitting in lotus pose and I'm not doing this, but
Right.
I am orienting my life towards transformation, transcendence. I'm learning, I'm actively engaged in my personal evolution. So yeah, I'm really glad you asked that, because I wish I could take out a billboard somewhere, maybe on Interstate 4, and say, you don't have to meditate to become a mindful person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it all boils down to just being in the moment. I mean, I think just being present with what you are, where you are. And I think that's why maybe some people say you could be present just washing the dishes and really just, focusing on that and focusing on folding clothes. I mean, I like doing that sometimes, just really taking the time to, do a good job and make sure they're all nice and not have to be constantly thinking about, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So I think to just be present and focusing on whatever you're doing, whether it is even just staring out the window. I've got a lovely window here. And sometimes I just like look out at the trees and just like take a breath for a little bit.
Yeah. It's really interesting. The whole point of mindfulness, to me, the benefit, like the answer to the question, why would I bother to become a more mindful person?
Right.
Has nothing to do with how long I can clear my mind or sit, or how many birds I can pick up when I'm walking. Like it has to do with the fact that when my daughter does something that I'm not loving, that I have the wherewithal to pause for a moment and I can respond with some intention, with some, really checking into my values as a mother, instead of just blowing up at her. So I spend much of my life still asleep, lost in my thoughts, not here, just going through my reflexive life.
Right.
And my aim is to spend much more time of my life in a wakeful state, in a conscious state, where I am aware of what I'm saying. I'm aware of the energy that I'm putting out. I'm aware of the thoughts that I've invited in for tea that are just blah, 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 I'm aware of my energy. I'm aware of how I'm tending to this human I get to hitch a ride with, this go around. So I think for people who are thinking, well, why become more mindful so I can just go on a meditation retreat? No, heck no. It's so that in your life, in the regular living of your life, you can be the patient, compassionate, loving, empathetic, generous, creative person that maybe you strive to be, and not like a fixing or I got to be perfect, but like my life just works better when I'm really patient and kind with my kids. I feel better. I don't spend a lot of time ruminating about why did I say that or why did I do that? Like my household just feels better to live in when I am steady, because how I go is how they go. I'm the rudder. Right. I am the barometer of this family, whether I like it or not. So, I really think that for people to see, oh yeah, it's like, I'm going to do some bicep curls, not so I can walk around all day and saying, look how many bicep curls I can do. Like I do bicep curls because I want my muscles to be strong so I can do other things, so I can participate in all aspects of life in a much more limitless way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really great that you're doing this now while you have young children, because I wished I had known this. I mean, I do know, and my sister used to tell me this. She's like, you are a better mom than our mom was. God rest her soul. She did the best she could with the knowledge she had. Um, and I strive to do better, but if I could do it over again now with the knowledge I have now, I would definitely have been a lot more patient, because there were definitely some times where I was like, oh man, wish I hadn't
Mm-hmm.
done that. So,
Yeah.
but it's the journey we're on. We all learn, and hopefully I I can now share my experience with others, and like you're doing as well, to help people now maybe prevent them from taking some of those steps, and learning how to do things like being mindful, to be able to give yourself the opportunity, as you said, to be able to stop and think and say, okay,
Mm,
how do I want to react in this moment?
yeah.
So,
Well, and I think the mothering element is probably one of the reasons why 95% of my clients are mothers
mm,
who are still, at home in the process of helping to raise their children, is that thought of, do I want to see them off for college or wherever they go in life,
mhm,
and have this thought, oh God, I wish I could do it over? Because in so many areas of our lives, we do get do-overs. We can start our careers over. We can
yeah,
start our relationships over.
that's true.
There's a lot of do-overs,
Mhm,
but you can't ever get your 7-year-old again,
yeah,
or your 9-year-old, and so
mhm,
I definitely approach that topic with a real preciousness and sincerity, because it is true. And I meet a lot of moms who wish that they could have done it differently. And I'll say to those people, as you alluded to, we do the best we can with what we know. And when we know
right.
better, we do better. And that's a very butchered version of something Maya Angelou said. But
Yeah,
the whole idea is like being able to give yourself space and grace and say, I didn't know better, and I did better.
yeah,
I did do better.
right,
And
exactly.
now I know better. And it's
Yeah,
like, how does that inform the mother that I am now? So
mhm, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, one thing that I did do, which I know don't really remember my mom doing. Maybe she might have, but is I would apologize, and
Yeah.
for like I was like I would like, I'm sorry, I overreacted, or and I sorry I yelled at you, and at least I think that has helped them, because I'm very blessed. They have both grown up. They're in their 20s now, but they're really good kids. They're good
Mm,
adults. And so I'd like to think, I guess I did do some stuff right along the way, along with my husband. So yeah, so for all of you who are having regrets, don't have regrets.
yeah.
Do the best you can, and you
Yeah.
always have opportunities to continue to improve, and that's it. And you can always have discussions even with your adult children, and say, yeah, if I had it to do over, I wish I would do something. And now, if
Yeah.
you have kids, you don't do what your mom did. Now you try to improve as well. And
Yeah. Well,
each,
and like, we don't want to give our children a childhood without any struggle.
yeah,
And so,
that's true.
yeah, so there's going to be struggle outside of the home, and sometimes
Right.
there's going to be struggle inside of the home. And
Yeah.
there's value in that,
Hmm.
especially if later in life you and an adult child can metabolize that together, and they can
Yeah.
now understand you. Like, one of the things I often say with my women's group is, I don't want to be a mystery to my kids. I want
Mhm.
them to really understand that I struggle.
Yeah.
Like, and that sometimes that means that an unsavory version of myself arrives on the scene, and I
Yeah.
can absolutely apologize for that later. But I also want them to understand, like, I'm just a human being just like them. I have
Yeah.
bad days. I have
Yeah.
hormonal cycles. I
Right.
have hopes and wishes and dreams and anxieties and disappointments and all the things. One of the things in our family, in our house, is that I've really just been really honest about, is that when I go out in the world, whether it's to go to a grocery store, we went to a social distancing birthday party yesterday. They had rented an ice cream truck, and everybody stood 6 feet apart.
Oh,
And I
wow.
hadn't thought that it was going to affect me the same way the grocery store does, which is, I just need to lay down. I feel like I'm carrying a backpack with like hundreds of pounds of boulders when I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sad. My nervous system is shot. I'm upset. I
Yeah.
can't even, there's just so many feels, right? And I felt that when I got back from the social distancing birthday party, and I've been so honest with everybody in my house. And my kids are 9 and 11, both girls. And my husband, like, whew, I'm not good right now. Like, I need to lay down. I need a hug. I need to just process. I need to just let this yucky energy move through me. And so I don't become like this mysterious, like, what's wrong with mom? Like, they know exactly what's wrong with me. I let them know, here's what's happening in my head. Like, here's what I'm struggling with. Here's what I'm having a hard time with. And while as adults, we want to be responsible about that. We never want to make our kids feel fearful or you know, when they're not our therapists by any means. But it is lovely to be seen by them, you know, to actually have them know me. And I don't want to have to do all that later in life.
Yeah.
And I may still have to explain, like, here's what I was going through. But for now, you know, I feel very known by my children. And there's a lot of comfort in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to ask you one last thing before, as we start to wrap up here. Is it important to have maybe a particular, like a sacred space in your home to practice mindfulness? Is that useful? And if so, how do you create one?
Oh, I love this question, Gloria. Because yes, I really think that we each need our own little sacred space. And when you think about, I think the average home in the United States is like, I don't know, 2,500 square feet or something like that, 2,200 square feet. And when you think about how you need just a fraction of that, a little corner, a little refuge that's yours, and maybe you've got a lamp and you've got a little basket with your journal and your books, and maybe you've got a nice little meditation cushion or a chair that's yours, and you can light a candle. And I have a little Buddha statue with mine, and maybe for some people it could be a crucifix, like just a place that when I go there, my brain goes, this is where we go and do that. This is where we go and return to that sort of reflective, contemplative space. So I 100% agree. And for some people that may be their bed, you know, maybe they can create it by grabbing a certain pillow, a certain blanket, and then their sort of portable basket. Some people, it might be outside. I think we have to just get really creative when we walk around our home and say, what little plot can I make mine? What can I, and really feel like, why shouldn't you? Why shouldn't you have a space in the house that is just yours? And then in terms of like the practicality of it, definitely go on to Pinterest. You can look up like sacred spaces or yoga spaces or at-home meditation corners and stuff, and you can get lots of inspiration about that. But I think it's just starting with things that you already love. Like I would really warn against like going, especially because you can't right now, but going onto Amazon or going out to Home Goods and just like, ooh, that candle or that quote or whatever, and be like, I don't think we need to do that. We already have our comforts at home. So it's like kind of bringing those together with some real intentionality. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of making your own little sanctuary in your sacred space. I love mine.
That's so good.
Do you have one?
I do. And I used to actually do it in my office, but my office is like right across from our bedroom. And so sometimes then I would hear my husband get up in the morning. And so I finally realized we have the benefit of a 2-story house. So we've got a spare room downstairs that's sort of the catch-all. It's got a lot of, junk in it. But there is a bed in there, and I set up I have a meditation cushion that I have actually so I have it at the foot of the bed, so I can kind of lean up against the bed if I need to. Yeah. And so that's my area. We've got a little bookcase in there, and I have a few little tchotchkes and things in there as well, and a candle and stuff in case I decide to light one once in a while. But that's my area. So I get to go downstairs, and that way only the cat might come in, and sometimes the dog too. But most of the time I can deal with that. So it has been so much better having that distance, having a space that I can just be. I need my quiet time in the morning to get centered and to do what I need to do. And yeah, it has made all the difference in the world.
So great. It's so great. And do you are you flexible with that? Like, do you just sort of wait and see what is kind of what you're asking for when you sit down, or do you have sort of a regimented practice?
Um, I used to. I actually did go on a meditation retreat last year, and I went on a 10-day silent retreat, which was,
Wow.
yeah, it was phenomenal. It was really good. And so I learned a type of it was called Vipassana type of meditation, and I did that for over a year. But now I've found that um, I'm more free flowing now with it. It's like I find that instead I just sort of sometimes I'll maybe just think of a mantra, or I mean this week I'm actually just doing a lot of gratitude. I'm just saying thank you in my practice, and sometimes I don't do anything, and sometimes I still go back to the Vipassana. So it just I'm just kind of letting whatever the mood of the day I think dictate, and that seems to be working out
That's
actually
great.
pretty well.
That's
Yeah.
super great. I love that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that, of course, you do work with clients, and do you work like one-on-one, and do you do group settings, or how do you work with people?
My preference is group settings. I do work one-on-one every once in a while, but I do the Awaken Living course that you mentioned. It's with 6 women at a time, 6 to 8 women.
Mm.
And we actually do kind of a study group of Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, which to
Oh, I
me is
like that book. Mm.
yeah, it's a really kind of pivotal
Mm.
reading for anybody who wants to start waking up to
Yeah.
what their head does, what their
Right.
mind does all day. So we
Yeah.
read that. And then we go through just journal prompts of asking people just to really investigate the living of their life. So that I have ongoing every month. I offer admission to that and start a new one that's 4 weeks. But for people who just want to get started, especially if they were intrigued about our conversation about that morning centering practice,
Mm-hmm.
I have a free 5-day audio course
Oh,
that you get emailed a different 10 to 12-minute audio every day. And it's really just about what is a daily centering practice? Why would maybe that be something that would be helpful and beneficial? And like, how do I set it up? Like all the practical and tactical and the tools and the
right.
where and the when and the what and all of that kind of stuff. So that's something that I know a lot of people are drawn to. And if you just go to 60mindfulminutes.com, you'll see it at the top. It says free course and you can sign up for that. So
Okay.
that's
Awesome.
it's a good place to start.
Very good. Well, I will definitely make sure that I have that in the show notes,
Thank you.
and for people to be able to take advantage of that. And are you active on social media at all? Can folks find you there?
Yeah, Instagram's kind of my favorite. I sort of
Okay.
repurpose everything on all the other channels, Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest. But my freshest content, or where I am sort of live most of the time, is on Instagram, and it's Kristen Manieri _. You can
Okay.
find me there. And I put up quotes, and I sometimes just throw up some little videos of just things that I'm thinking might be helpful. And I post what books I've read every month, and a lot of people really love to see that because I read a ton. So I put a picture up of all the books that I've read in any given month. So that's a good place to find those too.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm so glad to get to meet you in person,
Yeah, my
such as
pleasure.
we have to with the benefits of Zoom these days, but it works out. So hopefully
Yeah, it was
maybe
great.
one
Thanks
day
for having me.
we will be able to meet in person, since we're not that far away from one another. That would
Yeah.
be like that.
Yes.
So thank you. And for those of you listening and watching, thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. And I want to encourage you, if you have not subscribed to the podcast, to do that as well. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, and my YouTube channel is Gloria Rand Video. And until next time, I, as always, encourage you to live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.